Privileges and limitations of a sport pilot certificate, or what can and what can't you do as a sport pilot. There is two things that we can do as sport pilots, and there's a whole list of almost 20 things that we can't do as sport pilots. Now, the first thing we can do is act as a pilot in command of a single or two-place light sport aircraft, as long as we have the logbook endorsement that says we've been trained by a qualified flight instructor for that type of aircraft. You can also share your operating expenses with a passenger as long as those expenses are in direct relation to the actual flight. So fuel, oil, any airport expenses, or aircraft rental fees can be shared as long as you pay at least half of those expenses for the flight. So those are the two things that you can do. Now let's take a look at the list of things that you can't do. You can't carry a passenger or property for compensation or hire. And you also can't fly for furtherance of a business, so no business-related activities. You can only carry one passenger, and you cannot fly at night. And the definition of nighttime is, according to FAR 1.1, is the time between evening civil twilight and the beginning of morning civil twilight, as published in the American Air Almanac. And basically what that boils down to is about a half an hour, 28 to 30 minutes after actual sunset to 28 to 30 minutes before actual sunrise. Those are generally the times when the civil twilights happen, either in the evening or in the morning. Now, there's a resource where you can actually pull up that information for your area. It's a website, and it's www.sunrisesunset.com. You could pull up this page, and the easiest thing to do is just select a city out of the list here. We'll just select good old New Orleans, Louisiana. For the month of August 2008, we could adjust that as we want. And we want to display twilight times because that's what we're looking for. And we're going for civil twilight because back in our definition of nighttime, we were talking about civil twilight. We're not really worried about moon phases or anything like that. And we're looking for AM, PM. We'll submit that. And it'll give us a nice little calendar. If we're getting ready to go out here on the 19th, we can see morning civil twilight is 6:05 a.m. and evening civil twilight is 8:02 p.m. and it's got our sunrise and sunset in there. You can also use the U.S. Naval Observatory and get those numbers as well from their website. So another thing we can't do is fly in Class A airspace, and that makes a lot of sense because that's way up high, and you're also required to operate on an IFR flight plan up in Class A airspace. And we're not allowed to fly in Class B, C, or D airspace, or at an airport located in Class B, C, or D airspace without having an endorsement that says we've been specifically trained, and also our aircraft have to be equipped for that. We cannot fly outside the United States unless you have prior authorization from the country in which you want to fly. We cannot demonstrate the aircraft in flight to a prospective buyer if you're a salesperson. You can't fly in a passenger-carrying airlift sponsored by a charitable organization. You can't fly at an altitude of more than 10,000 feet MSL. And you cannot fly when the flight or service visibility is less than 3 statute miles. And this is a good one to remember because there's lots of other rules that state cloud clearance, visibility, and clearance stuff. And as a sport pilot operating under the sport pilot privileges, you cannot fly if the surface visibility is less than 3 statute miles. So that supersedes any other rules that may be out there that you may run across. You cannot fly without visual reference to the surface or visual reference to the ground. So You're not going to be operating VFR on top or getting yourself above cloud levels. You can operate if the aircraft has a VH that exceeds 87 knots calibrated airspeed. You can't operate in contrary to any operating limitation placed on the airworthiness certificate of the aircraft being flown, or you can't operate contrary to any limit or endorsement on your pilot certificate, your medical certificate, or any other limit or endorsement from an authorized instructor. You also can't fly in contrary to any restriction or limitation on your driver's license. You can't operate while towing any object, and you can't operate as a pilot flight crew member on any aircraft for which more than one pilot is required by the type certificate on the aircraft. So you can't log time as a crew member. Basically, it limits us to, again, light sport aircraft, one passenger, daytime, below 10,000 feet, not for hire, but we can split the expenses with the passenger as long as we pay at least half. So that's a quick summary. This section is available for you to look over on 61.315 in your FAR.